It's the 3 a.m. Coney Live here on YouTube. Should be able to get the audio up on Spotify later. But listen, we're starting something new. I wanted to do something like this kind of the whole season, and the season was such an up and down roller coaster ride that never really got to it. But moving on to 2022, better things. You know, thought maybe there would be a Lombardi trophy involved with all this, but there's not. I think we all needed some time, and the Coney took some time as well. And that's the beauty of doing your own podcast, right? I mean, you can be sad for almost an entire, what has it been, 8 days? 8 days? Thinking about the game that most of us will remember for probably the rest of our lives, which is Super Bowl 56. So let's get it out of the way. I'm not going to harp on the little things from the game. I'm not going to sit here and go through an entire podcast of stuff you've already thought about, you've already listened to, the 3rd and 1, the offensive line failures, Aaron Donald being the MVP, Jamar Chase running wide open down the field, the holding, not holding, pass interference, all that stuff. It's a tough topic to really go through again. They lost. And this is what I've really been saying to myself and to everybody around us, and I think it's a really important exercise for us to do. The Cincinnati Bengals lost the Super Bowl. It's you just have to say it because it's reality. You know, what happens next will determine our reaction to what has already happened. And I think that's really important to remember. I was talking to a bunch of Cleveland Indians fans throughout the week, and they were talking about 2016 and how much losing that World Series in 7 games stung, how they still think about it to this day. And I went, well, why? Right? I mean, it was successful. Shouldn't you agree with the run? Well, it's because they never won a championship. If you go look at the 2014 Royals, they lost in a game 7-2 in the first time they'd been in the World Series in forever, but they won the next year. So Royals fans don't think about 2014 nonstop all the time. They don't. They think about 2015 when they won the World Series. The 2017 Cleveland Indians were a better team than 2016, 102 wins, 2-0 lead in the American League Divisional Series. Blew it. That's why 2016 tastes worse. And I think we all know this. If the Bengals never make it back to the Super Bowl, that 3rd and 1 call, Jamar Chase running wide open, those things will be looked at much, much differently. And we all know that. But that's what sports is. But that's what sports would have been even if they would have won the game. I know titles last forever, but I just don't think we should determine an entire outlook for an organization based on whether they won or lost a football game down the stretch. I really don't. And before I get into that, looking forward to 2022, let's just talk about our boy, Joe Burrow. How did he play in this game today, in the game on Sunday 8 days ago? He got a 63 PFF grade. I thought maybe he was a little slow to read the Rams defense early compared to at least how fast Joe Burrow normally is. I mean, he missed T. Higgins on that short 3rd and 1. But listen to these facts. Joe Burrow, in his 30th NFL start, was leading a team that had won 6 games the previous 2 years to this Super Bowl. So in his 30th NFL start, he's playing in a Super Bowl. He took more sacks than any player in Super Bowl history. He faced a higher pressure rate than any quarterback did in any game this season, and any quarterback really in Super Bowl history. And, he finished with 266 yards, a 100 pass rating, and didn't turn the ball over. And had the lead with under 2 minutes to play. So, with Joe Burrow taking that much pressure, that much punishment, and having a 100 passer rating, and having the ball with under 2 minutes to go and driving, that's a feat in and of itself. And it's just a shame that he couldn't pull it off. But it happened. We got to move on. We got to find a way to pocket those emotions and find a way to make them a different memory, because if the Bengals go out and win 2 Super Bowls in the next 5 years, this will just be the one that got away and, that was a fun year. But another idea I'm really rejecting after the Super Bowl is, this was the Bengals' chance. This was the Bengals' chance. To me, that is just such a crazy idea. The idea that this was the Bengals' chance. This was the Bengals' chance. We haven't heard that all year. Oh, they're a year away. They're a year away. They're 2 years away. They're a year away. They're 2 years away. How do you say that all season? They get to the final game, they lose barely, and then we're going to turn around and go, well, that was their opportunity. What do you mean? I thought we were a year away. I thought we were a year away. I thought we were 2 years away. I thought we weren't close. And now we got as close as you can get to lifting the Lombardi Trophy, and we're all going to turn around and go, well, that was their opportunity. That was their chance. That was their chance to win the Super Bowl. It was only their chance because they were there. But in terms of roster, in terms of organizational flow and how this normally works, was this the year that the Bengals should have won the Super Bowl? No. We all knew that. We knew that when they were barely beating the Raiders. I came on the Coney and said, boy, the Bengals almost dropped the baby of the season. If they'd have lost to the Raiders, whole thing would have fallen apart at 5-5 out of the bye. They probably don't even make the playoffs. So how do you go from that type of team where you feel that way about it? Man, they're a year of roster building away from being a Super Bowl contender. That team then overperforms to get to the Super Bowl. That team is stocked with young, fresh talent all over the board. They lose barely, and now that was their only shot. That was their only chance. It doesn't make any logical sense. And we know that it doesn't make any sense to think about a team that way. We only think about a team that way because that's how NFL history has worked. At least that's how we perceive it works with Super Bowl losers. We believe that if a team gets to the Super Bowl and loses, that's it. They can't make a run anymore. And the only reason that's true is because we have some sort of bias, because if you look at recent Super Bowl history, the Super Bowl losers have done quite well. Have they all made it back? Not necessarily, but none of these teams were in the place that the Bengals are as a roster. And that's really the next topic in our show today, in our live show. It was always about 2022. I've been saying this all season long. I said it at the beginning of the year. I said it when I was yelling at Mike Brown about not signing Kevin Zeitler after the Bears game. I almost popped a blood vessel because of the pressure that Joe Burrow faced in that game. It was always about 2022. When you draft Jamar Chase, that is a move for 2022 because you knew you weren't going to be able to also fix completely the biggest weakness on the team. We all can admit that, which was the offensive line. That's why it was always about 2022. Because in 2022, you have Joe Burrow coming into his third season. Jamar Chase will have had the rookies out. He's completely free, has a full open and off season. Everybody's under contract. You have all your weapons back. You have all your key defensive pieces back. You can still franchise tag Jesse Bates so he's not too expensive. You can allocate resources because Joe Burrow is such a low cap hit to the offensive line. 2022 was the year. 2023 is the back end of the window where you've got to figure some things out with the defense, and you have to have another great draft this spring. But you don't have to have a great draft this spring for it to be about 2022. This roster should be set and ready to roll and compete at the level it did last year, plus the Joe Burrow leap and the Joe Burrow offseason effect that we've seen, I don't know, every offseason he's played, every real offseason he's had in his life. The entire program gets better. So that growth is going to happen. And it was always about 2022. 2022 to me will be the best version of the Cincinnati Bengals for the next 5 years. Now, I think that 2021 was going to be the worst version of the Bengals for, I believe, Joe Burrow's career. Like, there might be some teams in the early 2030s when you're completely out of the window and there's a whole roster reset. And it's like when Drew Brees went 500 in the middle of his career, where those teams were kind of bad. And they were just moving the ball a lot and throwing it a lot because it's the only thing they could do. But it was always about 2022 for the Bengals. And I've got a great graphic to show you. It's the simplest graphic in the world, and we all know this. Take a look at the cap spending. This year, the Bengals had the 7th best offense in the NFL. 7th best. Most sacks in the league, 7th best offense. Most sacks in the league, 7th best offense. And only 32% of their cap is currently allocated to the offense. 32%. That's 28th in the NFL. And then you go, well, they must have a lot of guys to re-sign. Nope. All the guys they're losing, they don't want anyway. So they are in a really unique position in NFL history for a team that made the Super Bowl, that has a super efficient offense, that has all its offensive pieces. I think when you look at this is like if the greatest show on turf, if the Titans stretch the ball out, score a touchdown to tie the game, win that Super Bowl with Steve McNair, Seriously, ask yourself this. If the greatest show on turf loses the Super Bowl in 1999, do they fall apart? Do they never get back? Are they an irrelevant team? What happens to them? Because that's really the question you need to be asking yourself now. We can't say things about one person, watch a game where he plays really well. Like we're calling Joe Burrow, Tom Brady, Steve Young, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, all these things. You can't watch that all season long, see him get to the Super Bowl, see him post 100 passer rating while taking more pressure than any of the 100-plus quarterbacks that have played in the history of the game in the Super Bowl, took more pressure than all of them, and had the lead with under 2 minutes left and 100-plus passer rating. You can't see all that evidence and then make the argument that they're never going to get back. It is a nonsensical argument. And if I hear somebody talk about Dan Marino one more time, I'm going to blow a gasket, okay? Dan Marino, guys, is the outlier. He is the outlier in NFL history. And then, you have people, well, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, two guys that are in the top 6 of my quarterbacks, 2 of the top 6 greatest quarterbacks of all time on my quarterback list that I have. You can check it out on my Twitter. We'll do some things about that over the summer. But on that list, 2 of those 6 players are Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers. They only have 1 Super Bowl appearance each. So that's where you go, well, Dan Marino isn't an outlier. But if you look at Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers' path, and if you look at Dan Marino's path too, it's not that they weren't ever close to getting back. It's that those 3 players specifically failed in the biggest moments. Dan Marino only had one 1,000-yard rusher in 17 years. Bengals just had that this year. That's another point to it. Drew Brees never had a competent defense for most of his time in New Orleans. Bengals seem to be an organization that's able to craft a defense. They're already getting back on track to where they were in the early part of the 2010s. The Packers, I think it's Aaron Rodgers' fault. Dude's been in the NFC Championship 4 straight years before this. Couldn't even make it out of the divisional round against the Niners this year. That's on Rodgers. I just don't think he's a great playoff performer. So when you look at the rest of NFL history and guys who make it to the Super Bowl this early in their career, Joe Montana, Kurt Warner, Tom Brady, you go down the list, Russell Wilson, they make it back. They all make it back. They all make it back. It is an outlier. You are thinking... If you think that Joe Burrow is Dan Marino, you are expecting the unexpected to happen. And I know that sounds crazy because we're talking about the Super Bowl here, but if you look at the statistical profile of Joe Burrow, the level he was drafted at, the talent he clearly sits at, what he's already accomplished in the league, and you combine that with NFL history, him not getting back is a surprise. It is a shock. It is a, damn, that's a big miss. I'm not saying it's impossible. We all know it's possible. But if Joe Burrow never makes it back to the Super Bowl, that is a surprise. And yet it's talked about like, yeah, he's probably not going to make it back. There's this idea that Joe Burrow just had like a Joe Flacco run. This wasn't Joe Flacco. This wasn't a guy getting hot in the postseason. This was a guy that was second in the league in passer rating, first in yards per attempt, first in completion percentage, while taking the most sacks in the league. The only other 2 players that have ever had a statistical profile similar to that in a single season are Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. In both of those years, those guys flamed out in the playoffs. Joe Burrow took his team to the Super Bowl. So if he has the statistical profile of Rodgers, Wilson, Brees, Marino, Montana, Brady, and he has postseason success, it's going to happen again. And I just need us all to calm down and not listen to the national media heads who want the Bengals to fail already. And you know what? I hate saying this because I said this after the Joe Burrow ACL injury and a lot of people called me crazy. But I think that there is a real benefit. I hate saying it because you want to win the Super Bowl. You can never have those things back. But the 2022 Bengals, in a vacuum, that specific team, how they will perform in the regular season, not even in the playoffs. Playoffs is a crapshoot. But how the 2022 Bengals will perform in the regular season, how aggressive the front office will be in the offseason, the best case scenario for this version of the Bengals was for them to lose the Super Bowl. That was the best case because it's going to make the front office more aggressive. It's going to get everybody more focused in the offseason. It's going to make sure that we have probably full participation or near full participation at OTAs again. Losing the Super Bowl was the best thing for the 2022 Bengals. Is it the best thing for the Bengals organization? Is it the best thing for Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and all these guys' careers? No. But if they win the Super Bowl this year when they're not supposed to win it, I really doubt they win it in 2022. I really doubt it. Because the organization momentum, you see Hakeem Adeniji pouring champagne down Joe Burrow's throats, maybe you give him another chance. But now Hakeem Adeniji, the last image we're going to see of him hopefully on the field is him falling into Joe Burrow because he's being pushed back by Aaron Donald so bad. That's the difference between winning and losing Super Bowls. You can change your attitude on your team, and this team wasn't ready. This team wasn't good enough. It wasn't. They almost did it because of their culture, their will, and the quarterback, but they weren't ready. We all knew they weren't ready. This entire year became about winning one playoff game, and then when that happened, we just went on a magical ride. It was always about 2022 for the Cincinnati Bengals, and look at it again. Look at the cap space again, okay? Your defense is improving. You can draft there, stay cheap there. You can improve that unit, 40% of the cap, marginally improve that unit through the draft, spend a bunch of money on offense, and I think you can really, really improve this team into 2022. They have an unprecedented opportunity, really, to elevate this. They have the makings of a dynasty. They really do. Now, can they be the first dynasty in NFL history to start with a loss in the Super Bowl? Most dynasties start with a loss in the AFC or NFC divisional or conference championship. Then they come back and win 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 Super Bowls. That's usually the dynasty path. 81 Niners took that path. Well, no, the 81 Niners won the Super Bowl that first year out. So it is not determined. It is not destiny. This organization was always about 2022 in terms of this is the year that it can really pop for us. And I think that they have the angle, if they do this offseason right, to being the best team in the NFL. I really believe the Bengals will be the best team in the NFL in 2022 if they do this offseason correctly. And I think that they will. I believe the organization will spend money. I believe that they have enough reputation now to really attract some of these guys. I think it's going to be a great offseason for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think the team culture is there. I think they're all going to improve. I think Joe Burrow is going to take a leap. I think Jamar Chase is going to take a leap. I think that it's going to be an explosive winning year in the regular season. Can they get it done in the postseason? That's about health. That's a whole nother set of questions that you have to answer. But in terms of the regular season, to me, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be the best team in the NFL in 2022. I think that's in front of them. They just have to go out and take it. All right, last topic on the live show, because we're going to have to talk about it, right? Because I can't just talk football all summer. Professional baseball is currently on life support. The reason I say it's on life support is because I'm currently living in Chicago. I live pretty near Wrigley Field. And the way you hear people talk about the strike, the exhaustion from these players and the sport of baseball is at a level I've never really seen it. Combined with a really highly watched Super Bowl, a really thrilling NFL playoffs, if baseball doesn't get their stuff together, because the NFL already took a huge market share and a huge piece of the eyeballs and thoughts of the world, really, the sports world, because of the pandemic. Because baseball and basketball fell out of their normal routines and football stayed in theirs, that pandemic year where it was all shut down, football was still normal. The draft was when it was supposed to be. Free agency was when it was supposed to be, right? The season had its normal, no preseason, but who cares about preseason? Nobody. It had its normal flow. And sporting viewership is about flow. It's about rhythm. It's about seasonality. People connected to the weather. People connected to times a year, food, right? Thanksgiving is connected to football. And now Christmas has become connected to football. And now, shortly after New Year's, because of the college football playoff, has become connected to football. Early February is now connected to football, right? There's so many times of the year that are being connected to football. And if baseball, for their 2 out of 3 Aprils, if 2 out of 3 Aprils, you're not playing baseball, when April is baseball's month. Baseball, like, people watch so much more baseball in April. It's April. It's beautiful. It's spring. It's warm. You remember being a kid and playing catch with your dad, and it's baseball. If you miss 2 out of 3 Aprils as professional baseball, Both of them, because you can't get to the negotiations right. One of them, you can make the pandemic as an excuse, and nobody's going to blame you necessarily. There was a lot to negotiate. But this time, you really just can't negotiate with each other. And so if you can't play baseball in April, 2 out of 3 years, because you can't agree on money, not a good look, because the NFL draft's going to still happen, free agency is going to still happen, and people are going to turn their attention elsewhere, and you have a chance for football to steal the spring. The United States Football League is back. The XFL is making deals with the NFL. Baseball has to get its stuff together, and it has to get back it has to be the spring dominant sport. It's its only hope. It's its only hope, right? If they lose a spring again, I'm not sure where professional baseball is going to go other than being a really fun thing for people who live in big cities to do. And that's not really a successful long-term model. Sure, you'll make money at the box office, but where's the real money at? It's television deals. It's not good for baseball whatsoever to be missing this spring this year. They've got to get it together, and I don't really care who has to bend or buckle. I think there should be a salary cap. I think there's so much currently wrong with the structure of professional baseball, and they are just being lapped by the NFL. They are no longer America's pastime, and they won't even be the third most popular sport in the country if they continue like this. I mean, if they don't get their stuff together and they have a condensed season with a strike, or God forbid they don't even play the season, and you've got the World Cup this winter in 2022, pray that the United States men's don't play well because you're going to fall behind soccer. Like, that's what baseball is sitting at right now, a really key point where they've got to fix it. They've got to adjust. They've got to be able to move forward. And if they don't do it, they're going to be lost. They're going to be floundering, and they'll get lapped even more than they've been lapped already. And I say that as a guy that will still go to baseball games. But there's a difference between, hey, I'm a guy that lives in a city that's going to go to a baseball game, compared to I'm a fan that lives 2 hours from any stadium, and I'm going to sit down every night and care about 162 games in the ride and the season and the teams and the players. Way different ball game. The style of play is not conducive to more fans. It's a rough spot for sure for professional baseball. But hey, I'm cool to talk about football all year. My fiance might not want to talk about football all year, but I'm definitely cool to talk about it all year. All right, we'll do a little longer on these live streams. Sometimes we'll have callers. We'll try to do it every morning. Just getting started. We got the graphics, everything going. Hopefully you look great. Just wanted to come on and do a Coney. It was a sad Super Bowl. But it was a good thing. They made it there. They got there. AFC champion, Cincinnati Bengals. I'll be able to smile about it at some point. But it makes you more hungry for it. And my hope and my crazy theory, it's not really crazy. It's really not crazy. And it's gonna happen. I'll be like, I shouldn't have said it was crazy. I think this is going to be, and it's so fitting for Joe Burrow, guys. The doubted, the comeback kid, the kid that was defined by a state championship loss, the kid that has been in the underdog, that's had to overcome every single obstacle in his career. Every obstacle placed in front of him, he's had to hurdle, he's had to leap, he's had to do it with injuries. He's the comeback kid. He is you can tie all the nicknames that have been tossed around in NFL history to him. I think it would be so fitting for Joe Burrow to be the quarterback of the first dynasty that started with a loss in the Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be cool? Because most dynasties, they start with a win. Not really many dynasties start with a loss in the Super Bowl. I don't think any in NFL history. The 70s Steelers, it was the AFC Championship they fell. The 80s Niners, they won their first Super Bowl appearance when they made it. 90s Cowboys, same thing. 2000s Patriots, they won the first Super Bowl that they were in. If you want to separate the Patriots into the 2010s, they lost technically in 2011 before they had the run at the end of the decade. But I feel like the Patriots are hard to compare to. If you look at NFL history, there hasn't been a dynasty that started with a loss in the Super Bowl. But it's also kind of crazy that that hasn't happened yet. It feels like that's something that could happen. And I think it's fitting that Joe Burrow be the quarterback of that team. The team that was like, yeah, we don't have Super Bowl hangovers. We're too tough for that. We're too emotionally strong. We're too used to playing from behind. We're too used to being doubted. It's not going to happen to us. We're going to be great no matter what, even if we lost the biggest game we could lose. I think that's the story. I think that's the hope moving forward. And that's up to the Bengals, though. Joe Burrow will be good enough to lead a dynasty. It's just up to whether the roster and the health and the luck and the division and all those things line up with the Cincinnati Bengals as well. I think it's a good shot that it can, and I think that Joe Burrow makes it more likely than not, but it's still up to the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow will be an MVP candidate bona fide next year. I would be shocked if he threw less than 40 touchdowns. Again, I am assuming they fixed the offensive line. I would be shocked if he threw less than 40 touchdowns. I'd be shocked if he was under 70% completion, and I would be shocked if he were under 8 yards an attempt. And if you guarantee those statistical thresholds, you don't lose less than 10 games in the NFL. You win 10 games. And that's with a bad offensive line. So if they become an average offensive line, then you win 12 or 13. If you somehow get this offensive line good, you win 14, 15. If you somehow make this offensive line great, the only team that will beat you is yourself. And a lot of times this year, we came on this podcast, and it felt like the only team that could beat the Bengals was the Bengals. Even in the Packers game, even in the Niners game, teams that were late in the playoffs in the NFC, even in the Chargers game when you're making that comeback, right? Even in the Browns game, you feel like the Browns 41-16, Bengals fans that watched that game, Bengals fans that believed in this team thought they really beat themselves today. And so if a team only lost because they beat themselves, and they can remove the area they constantly beat themselves, which is the offensive line, where's the ceiling? Don't connect this logo to this team. Don't be ones that do that. You owe it to yourself as a Cincinnati Bengals fan. You owe it to yourself as a sports fan to believe in this team more than you believed in any team that you've ever had in your life. That's where you should have been after they won the first playoff game. It's where you definitely should have been when they beat Tennessee. It's where you better have been after they beat Kansas City. It's where you should have been when Joe Burrow got the ball with 2 timeouts left, getting ready to drive. And it's where you should be after he couldn't get it done. Because this is the most special thing that's ever happened since the Big Red Machine in Cincinnati sports in terms of the way the roster's constructed, the youth, the hunger, the competitiveness, the popularity, all those things coming together at once. We have not seen it in this city in a very, very, very long time. And we owe it to ourselves to be out in front of this team and speaking almost, like we're speaking gospel. Because they, as an ESPN, an NFL network, and the big guys, they will not put their reputations on the line for an organization they don't believe in. And you know what? Frankly, if I looked them in the face and had the conversation, could I necessarily blame them? No. There's not a lot of Cincinnati Bengals fans that they believe listen to their podcasts. I think they're way underestimating. But they don't owe it to themselves or their audience, and they're just going to doubt this logo until they lift the Lombardi Trophy. But don't let the logo color your opinion of the team. Your opinion of the team should be from what you've seen. And what we've seen, those of us that have watched every single game, we know that this is not just good or magic or cool. This is special. This is unprecedented. This is legendary stuff. And if you know that, if you believe that, if you've seen it with your own eyes, you don't need confirmation from other people. We don't need confirmation from other people about the validity of what this can be and what this will be. And we all owe it to ourselves to believe in them and to believe in that. And continue to do that even if they don't win the Super Bowl next year or the year after or the year after that. Just continue. Because they work hard enough. They've earned that from all of us. So believe. Believe. It's just a longer time we got to wait to believe. We were believing for a few days there. But I mean, yeah, it still hurts. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I recommend watching Man in the Arena, Tom Brady. He's got a lot of great stories about how to lose a Super Bowl. And Joe mentioned that he watched Kurt Warner's A Football Life of what it takes to lose a Super Bowl. And it does take, to be mature enough to win a Super Bowl, you have to be mature enough to lose a Super Bowl. And I think this team is. And that's a really profound statement. To be mature enough to win a Super Bowl, you have to first be mature enough to lose it. And to understand how close you were and to not defeat yourself. And I don't think this team's going to do that. I think they got a great culture, and I think we got fun times moving forward. All right, I said I was going to get out of here a while ago, so now I'm actually going to get out. We'll see you guys. It's 3 a.m. Coney.